Welcome to Wasm Cloud Wednesday for October the 6th, 2021. Got a couple of events to get started with, just some quick calls to action and reminders. In 2 hours and 55 minutes, we're going to do the Wasm Cloud 0.50 release event. Please feel free to sign up. This will immediately turn into a restreamable link as soon as the event is finished, though. And then next week, actually Saturday first, we've got Cloud Native Rejects, where our very own Taylor will be speaking. And then we've got Cloud Native Wasm Day on Tuesday, October the 12th, where we've got a whole program of great content that we are excited to share and get out for everybody. And then we've got KubeCon North America, where Wasm Cloud has a talk on Wednesday at, where am I speaking? You should probably know that. At 3:25 Pacific. So I'll let everyone else do the math on that. Any other community events that folks would want to bring up or anything to call attention to? Looking ahead to reInvent, we're looking at doing a WASM get together for reInvent from a meeting perspective. And I've heard that the WASM San Francisco group is going to try to turn into like a national org. So I got invited to a meeting to discuss that, to see about doing hosting meetings in New York City and wherever else folks may live, if we want to try to recruit some folks in the fold there. I know we've been heads down on the demo for this afternoon, so I would just ask on the Wasm Cloud's side, would anybody want to preview the demo that we're going to run through tonight, or show washboard or anything like that? Or we could just save it till a little bit later.
That would ruin the surprise.
Ruin the surprises. Okay, Brooks, I'm down with that. Any other demos folks want to show today? I would just do a quick call out that a documentation at wasmcloud.dev has been up to date. I really appreciate all the bug fixes and submissions here to make sure that this experience is smooth coming in. And all the packaging should be out there for the Wasm Cloud host to get through those. I know we still have a few additional things to build out on that side, and we're meeting the next couple of days to talk a little bit about roadmap and architecture. So next week's meeting, we may have something to share there around what the next few months will look like from a priority perspective now that we're at 0.50. I guess at this point, Steve, I'd turn to you. Is anything on the board you'd want to share?
Well, we got the .50 release out, and we've really been working on this pet clinic demo. So you'll see the code in the examples repository. So that's what the team's been working on over the last week or so. And as Liam mentioned, we're starting the discussions to do product planning for the next phase, the next few months. So please also submit your tickets and feedback on the kind of features you like, features you don't like, features you wish that we had, and that'll help us a lot in the planning.
Thank you, Steve. Any other call outs on examples or documentation or anything like that? We have a quick meeting today. I guess pivoting over to a Wasm Cloud, Kevin, Brooks, Taylor, Stuart, anybody, any open priorities that you want to discuss? All right, I think we may have a short meeting today. Jennifer, anything on the Kubernetes operator you guys have been curating and working through? Are we on hold until we get the Lattice controller implemented?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Yeah, I started
playing around with the Lattice controller to get it working. And I guess I made some comments in the channel. I did get it building and working, and I'm playing around with it. I have not integrated it with the operator at this time. And I haven't really tried to steal the demo from Aish and David either. So I think at some point in time, they will do a demo whenever they're actually feeling comfortable.
I'm curious what you mean by you've got it working.
Oh, in the sense that I just wanted to be able to build it and get it up and running on my machine, but I haven't actually connected it to NATs or anything like that. So I was just trying to
because
figure out how to do
there is no code in the Lattice controller right now to actually connect to NATs. So that code is incredibly incomplete. It's I would say it's probably 10% written.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to hack around it and see what I can do. And also learning opportunity.
That's awesome. I know that Kevin has been really focused on the demo for this afternoon and getting the reference app up there together. And tomorrow we're doing a couple-hour meetings on prioritization and grooming for roadmap. So we'll try to pull that back for next week, and we'll see where the Lattice controller ends up on the board from a prioritization perspective. I actually think it is pretty important because I think that, in my experience, a huge percentage of customers on the enterprise are, on Kubernetes today. And that means if we want them to have a roadmap to pick up Wasm Cloud, it's, the MVP is just put Wasm Cloud in a container, but the more we can polish that experience and provide features for them to use, I think the better that'll be. Jordan, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I like using the hand up button. Quick question, because I asked it earlier in Slack this week, and it's a roadmap and there's no rush. But how far down the line are we looking at like generating the non-Rust interfaces, specifically Go? Question mark.
That's a good question. Steve, you came off mute. Did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I wanted to ask. So you said I wanted to ask what language. Then you said Go. Did you mean TinyGo for actors, or did you mean Go for capability providers?
Well, I just said Go. I guess my question really would be, non-Rust, right? I prefer TinyGo, but just looking down the road.
So I don't have an answer for that. We need to prioritize based on interest, and so non-Rust is not specific enough to prioritize. So we really need to know the kind of languages people are interested in. I've seen requests on Slack for C or C++, and that's about all I've seen so far. So that's where your input is really helpful, and the larger input is really helpful in giving us feedback as to what people really need and want to use.
Maybe we could start like a Slack poll, let everyone answer. That'd be fun.
Sure.
On the backside, I love that idea, Jordan. If you want to just kick one off, curate a list of languages and maybe check it by Steve before you drop it would be awesome. But we are experimenting with some professional roadmap tools like Product Board on the backside. What I like about it is that as we kind of collect evidence for what people are doing, we can try to have a really user run roadmap here. Steve, just speak to your point around real prioritization. Alex, I think that's a great question. What languages are easy to implement? I remember someone talking about challenges with TinyGo's efforts in the past. Is there a perception as far as the level of effort for various languages, Steve, on the actor and the capability side?
Possibly, but the level of interest in the community matters more than how easy it is to do.
I mean, there are some hard limitations. Like there are there are specific workarounds that need to be put into TinyGo in order to make it work, but that's not all that big a deal. We've made that same workaround before. Other languages lack data serialization stuff. So like when we did TypeScript before, or AssemblyScript required writing a message pack encoder decoder. So those types of details are important, but like Steve said, what really matters is the language that the community wants the most.
I guess as a generality, it would be easier to do other language support for capability providers, because then you have the languages are more mature. Rust really still has the best tooling for WebAssembly, but so Go, Python, Elixir, a bunch of languages are possible on the capability provider side. And a smaller number of languages are possible on the WebAssembly actor side.
Actually, I would say that we should probably not try Elixir on the capability provider side. There are a number of issues with the way Elixir distributions work. Mostly it's just that Elixir doesn't lend itself well to building self-contained executables, which is pretty much a requirement for capability providers. The capability providers, regardless of what language they're in, they need to be able to read from standard in, which all languages should be able to do. And then they need to be able to communicate over NATs and convert to and from message pack. But that's essentially the core requirements. And sadly, Elixir fails at the self-contained executable requirement.
Okay. As for WebAssembly languages, I'm personally interested in Grain, but the last survey I saw said that only 1% of WebAssembly users were using Grain as the source language. So unless we heard otherwise feedback, it probably wouldn't be high on the priority list.
All right, well, definitely some stuff to surface on the roadmap. You know, between this and the Lattice controller, these two topics were two of the things that I'd penciled in on the roadmap without any details or decisions for us to, you know, for us to sort of discuss. And we'll bring that back and surface that broadly across Slack. As always, you know, there are sort of how we think it's going to shape up right now is maybe product board is distant feature roadmap. We'll continue as we get more fidelity to pull things into an RFC process where we're publishing RFCs on GitHub. And then we'll sort of coordinate across the individual repos with clear definitions of done in GitHub tickets. And we'll use ZenHub to sort of like manage across the various repos here. Those are sort of information systems. With product board, I think we have the ability to publicize a roadmap, but we're still new to the software and trying to figure out if it's a good fit for this particular use case. And as I have some time to experiment with that, you know, we'll see what we can link in publicly to the community as we sort of like agree on a, hey, we think this is what the roadmap looks like for the next few months, and maybe even some rough mappings to feature releases and stuff like that. You know, in the sidebar here, Taylor, Zig and Grain, you know, on the language side there, but just I think kind of like a discussion there. Okay, wonderful. And Janeth, I love the hustle on, you know, trying to pick up the Lattice controller and see where it's at and just get familiar with it. And, you know, and I love the passion that you and also the sort of strategy you've brought to the Kubernetes operator in, you know, selecting the framework that gave us the best starting point and, you know, the Kubernetes operator stuff. Really appreciate that. That's great. Anything else on the roadmap we'd want to discuss? The only item I would love to get up towards the top of it would be, and we'll discuss this tomorrow as well, that we haven't talked about, from additional language support, Kubernetes operator would be taking another pass at the training materials and redoing those. Those, when we look at the usage, we just had really sustained continual engagement with both Kata Coda, or with Kata Coda at least. I don't have stats on the Linux Foundation stuff, but with Kata Coda, and I want to make sure that now that we have these new demos, that we maybe think about how we might incorporate them into a more expansive onboarding to show distributed topology and those other kind of like really big wins that Wasm Cloud gets you on day one.
On that note, do we have something on the roadmap that's similar to Kiali that would help us visualize what's going on with the Lattice controllers and the distribution of the system?
What's the software you suggest?
Kiali, it's like a mesh view for Istio, which is the service mesh. And that's kind of still my mental map of what the Lattice controller is, which working on it will probably change, but an OTP. It's more like, so it works pretty well for inspection, or I mean, yeah, it just works kind of well for showing what traffic is going on, how the whole thing just hangs together in terms of what the mesh looks like.
I'm not all that familiar with this particular piece of software, but it's certainly something to look at, from like a idea and interaction. Washboard, I feel like there's some big opportunity here. We were looking at a washboard earlier today on rehearsing the demo, and I found myself thinking through, a bunch of common, views that I think would make sense if we had, like a host view that organized with the host as the anchor, and then, distributed out from there, an actor view where, the drop downs would be, what capabilities am I attached to, and then maybe a capability view that would show, some things from there. So I think there's lots of opportunity on the visualization there for the Lattice controller or really any component. But I think certainly if you can link it into chat, Janet, I'd love to take a look at it and just see. Anything else on roadmap today, or we just transition out any other topics that we'd want to talk about today, or are we all just gonna get heads down for the demo at 4? Taylor just slacked me, Cookie Monster eating cookies. Crumbs in my beard. All right, well, I guess that's it. I'll go and stop recording and we can hang out.